You've been searching for the best way to generate passive income in your life and heard that real estate is a great way to do it. But you're tired of all the so-called gurus who are all talk and no substance. Get ready to celebrate because Kevin Bupp has spent 14 years successfully making it happen. This is the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Now, here's Kevin Bupp.
Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast, where our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. Now, our guest for this week's show is real estate expert and founder of Landcart Commercial, Sarah Landcart. Now, Sarah is a true powerhouse in the Texas commercial real estate world. And even better is the fact that she got her start right out of college as a young, driven woman fighting against a male-dominated and sometimes cutthroat industry. Now, after a blistering 10 years of working her butt off and making her way to the top of various firms, she took the entrepreneurial leap and started her own commercial investment and brokerage firm and set her mark in the Texas commercial real estate world. Now, here's what you're going to learn in our call, Sarah, today. You're going to learn how Sarah got started in her path to a commercial real estate power player and ultimately why she decided to focus on the industrial sector. You're going to learn what steps Sarah took in her earlier years to quickly gain traction, even though it was during the rough years following the Great Recession. You're going to learn the role a mentor played in both her personal development and business acumen, which she ultimately credits with her success in this industry. You're going to learn how she mastered the art of rejection early on and used it to fuel her passion to succeed. You're going to learn what the final catalyst was that pushed Sarah to finally venture out on her own and take the massive leap of faith to start her very own brokerage and investment firm. You're going to learn what Sarah's outlook is on the influential role that marijuana will play in the long-term demand for industrial property, and much, much more. And so with that, guys, I'm excited to get on to the show with Sarah, but before we do, I just have a few quick housekeeping items. Like I do each and every week, I like to go through one of my personal bests and professional bests of the prior week. Now, this past weekend, had a very relaxing weekend with neighbors and friends. I wasn't traveling. I was home, which is phenomenal. I love being home with my family and my boys, my wife. And, we're actually getting some cooler weather here in Florida, which allowed us to use our fire pit outside. We built a really nice fire pit overlooking a preserve that we live on. And actually, both Friday and Saturday, we used the fire pit. And additionally, it's stone crab season down here in Florida. And so we actually had a party on Saturday night and brought in 12 pounds of freshly caught stone crab from the Gulf of Mexico. So just a lot of fun. Again, family, friends, and just sharing lots of great laughs, making memories, what have you. These are really my favorite type of weekends. And I'm somewhat of a homebody. I travel a good bit, but I am a homebody, and I very much look forward to spending time at our house and, again, making these awesome memories. As far as a professional best, we just got the debt set in place with Fannie Mae on our latest acquisition in Texas. This is a 200+ space mobile home park that is 100% tenant-owned homes and city utilities, which is exactly what you should be looking for if you're buying mobile home parks. Rents are currently $375 a month on average, and the market is $450 plus, possibly even higher than that. But $450 is a good target to go for, and so there's a lot of runway to go there as far as the rents are concerned. Lots of upside potential. This deal actually came from our cold call efforts, and it's one that we've actually been working now for over 5 months. In fact, maybe even a little bit longer than that. It's an estate sale, and so we've been negotiating with 5 siblings, which has been challenging to say the least. Okay, so it took quite a while to actually get it tied up in the contract. So very much looking forward to that. And moving on here, guys, if you love what we're doing here at the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast, please be sure to go subscribe to the show and leave a rating and review on iTunes. And if you leave a review, I will be sure to give you a shout out in a future episode. And so let's go ahead and I want to give a shout out to someone that's taking the time to do that. And this is from screen name EMD Schmitz. And they say, my husband and I have recently been tuning in and we are loving the content. We are both new to real estate investing, but serious about building our knowledge. Kevin has great practical information on starting the process and features many seasoned experts in the industry. Thanks for getting us even more excited to jump into the game of commercial real estate. Well, thank you for taking the time to leave that review. It's very awesome that you did that. And guys, it's super simple. So please take a moment to go do it. Lastly here, before we get moving on, just want to remind you about the free 30-minute call that I offer each and every Friday. I offer up a few different 30-minute time slots. You can sign up for one of these calls by going to kevinbupp.com And this is where you and I can get on the phone and talk about anything your heart desires regarding real estate investing, okay? Whether you're brand new or a seasoned veteran, this has allowed me to connect with hundreds of you over the years, and hopefully I look forward to connecting with you sometime soon on one of these calls. And so, guys, with that, let's get on to the part of the show that you've been waiting for, which is our interview with Sarah Landcart. So here we go. Alrighty, guys, it is my honor to introduce my guest for today's show, founder of Landcart Commercial, Sarah Landcart. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us here. Very much looking forward to this show and looking forward to learning more about you, your background, the founding of Landcart Commercial. You've had a lot going on in the commercial real estate world, have made many different career highlights along the way, and I'm very excited to talk about each of those and just the different successes that you've had throughout the years. However, I like to set the foundation, and so I always find it best to kind of learn the personal side of the individual that we have on the show here as a guest. And Sarah, for those that aren't familiar with you, that don't know your background a little bit and how you got into real estate, maybe you could take a few minutes to tell us a little more about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me today and on the show. So I got started in commercial real estate about 10 years ago, officially, but had been around it kind of an ancillary through my father since I was a little girl, but went to college at Auburn University. And through that time at Auburn, I, as dorky as it sounds, but was the president of the real estate club there, which was a great opportunity for me to have a reason to call people, to meet with them, to pick their brain about the real estate business and what they did, from bankers to appraisers to developers, brokers, et cetera. And so through that experience, I met with a ton of people and really kind of figured out that I wanted to get into the real estate business. So directly out of college, I started in the brokerage side of the business at NAI. We were an NAI affiliate here in Fort Worth, Texas, NAI Health Partners, and then we later merged with Transwestern. Through that time, just started on the ground floor and worked my way up and within the company of becoming a partner in the firm. And the youngest person nationally at Transwestern, honored by that, just through a lot of hard work. So my primary background is on the industrial side of the business. And I chose to get into the industrial because that's what I was most comfortable and had already had experience just growing up. My father owned manufacturing businesses. So they built overhead bridge cranes and conveyor systems. So being a female, having that background already, it made a lot of sense. And I somewhat knew what I was talking about getting into business at a young age. You don't know everything.
Make it till you make it, right?
Yeah. I was a pro at that, door by door. I always tell people kind of my success is that I went through a bunch of hills. So just going through these industrial parks, door to door, and building my network and building my client base, literally going door to door. So I would wear out a bunch of heels.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I don't want to skim over the fact that you got started at a young age and quickly rose to the top at Transwestern before, going out and doing your own thing, right? I mean, like that, that period of time, you said, about 10 years from the time you started to the time of founding Landcart Commercial? Is that what
Correct.
It was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just under.
Yeah. Yeah, so you made it seem like it was like super easy. I just walked around, knocked on some doors, and got a lot of business. And we all know that that's just not the case, right? It surely wasn't that easy. You put in lots of long hours. I'm assuming that you probably had some great leadership or a great mentor or mentors there at Transwestern. And obviously you were a little bit born into the real estate space, but not so much, right? I mean, like your father owned manufacturing, obviously smart businessman. However, what you were learning in the transactional side of the business with industrial was probably very different than what his day-to-day looked like, right? And so I'd love to, hear from your perspective of what those first couple transitional years really look like for you when you stepped into the space. And how did you find your way? Because you found it very quickly, but how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely not easy, especially those first couple of years. And everybody, so I got in 2009. and got my license in 2008. I mean, we're in the middle of a downturn and everyone's asking, why the heck are you getting into real estate right now? And it was the best time that I could think of to actually get in. Looking back on it now, is because people had time to spend with me and give more advice on what to do. And you start laying the groundwork. And, those first couple of years are tough, and everybody guys says you're not going to make any money, and they're correct, because it just takes time. And had a guy, his name was Jerry Alexander, and he hired me into this business. He passed away about 5 years ago, but I owe him so much and for giving me a chance. At first he wasn't going to hire me, and I had told him basically, you're making a mistake. I won't let you down. And he gave me a chance, and then he advised me along the way, but it wasn't without a lot of hard work that got me to where I am today. And my dad being in sales, he was there in the background encouraging me. And basically I had a system where I'd print out 50 flyers a day for a property that Jerry had put me on a listing for, and I didn't know what else to do. So I just went door to door passing out flyers on properties, and walking into the back of a warehouse, and these people are, what are you doing? I've got a building down the street for lease, and just putting in the hours. And I remember specifically, like one day I pulled into a gas station after making calls. Actually, I think I probably just drove around the park and never made it into the front door of the calls. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing? I've got 2 degrees. I'm getting the door slammed in my face. Is this really worth it? But the more I just stuck with it, the more I built my network, the more things just started to fall into place. And I started to build a reputation in this town of someone who's going to work and going to do what they said you're going to do. And just building my client base, literally, I say door to door. And there's a lot more to it than that. But that's what really, I think, helped lay the groundwork for what I'm doing today.
I'm going to sum it up real quick. You're basically willing to do what others weren't willing to do. Seriously, actually going door to door, literally manually handing out flyers. And guys, she's based in Texas. Texas gets hot, especially when you start talking about industrial centers, where probably most of them, like there's certain sections of that facility that does not have good air conditioning or ventilation, right? So you're out there humping it around and probably just, working in that Texas heat and just trying to make it, which is awesome. So during that time, you had ebbs and flows with believing in yourself, or maybe not believing in yourself, but believing in this career path. And I'm sure you questioned it multiple different times, as you'd mentioned, as you're sitting there in the parking lot. What helped you keep the faith? What was that? Did you have a mental exercise you'd go through? Did you go listen to heavy metal and get all jacked up? I don't know. Like there had to be something that regrounded you back to the original belief that you had when you first started putting in the hours and putting in the effort. So what was that would always bring you back to believing in what it was you were doing, that knowing that there was going to be a positive outcome at the end if you just stuck with it?
I wish I could say there was one simple thing that kind of kept me motivated and going, but it was a multiple of different things. From mentors, throughout my career that I've found and built relationships with, that have encouraged me, through my father, through clients, for every, couple doors that are slammed in your face, that next deal is around the corner, and then you get a lead. And, all of those little things just start adding up. And I would have a theme song. I still have theme songs that I'll listen to in the car. It changes every couple weeks. They get me pumped up. And sometimes you just need that to get out of the car and go make a call or pick up the phone to someone that you think's not going to answer. Some of the relationships that I've built with today are with people that I never in a million years thought they'd answer my call. They answered on the first time and then start texting me, and we build, it's just, I think you got to have the courage. And when you start gaining experience and know what you're talking about.
It's like, it's like golf. I don't know if you golf or not. And I'm a horrible golfer. I literally probably play once a year. And it's, you go out and you shoot one good shot out of the, the 100 and other, at least for me, it's like the 100 and other, like 15 shots that you take, which means I'm a horrible golfer, that it takes me 115 swings to make it through an 18-hole course. But you hit that one good shot and it literally makes you come back the next time, and it's just that one good shot, it's a little break that you get there, just the little shining light that you see at the end of the tunnel. And it sounds like you got a couple of those little shots along the way, and they allowed you to kind of keep the course and know that, okay, this is just a momentum thing. I got to build more momentum here and just keep doing what I'm doing. And so that's awesome. And, guys, Sarah's really, she's being very humble here on this show. And I'm just going to take a moment to reflect on a few of the career highlights that you've had along the way. And I'm sure there's probably more. Don't know how updated or outdated this list might be, but you were named top commercial broker in Fort Worth Magazine. DECEO listed you as a power broker in 2016, 2017. Fort Worth Business Press lists you as top 20 in their 20s. BizNow's 35 under 35. You're one of Dallas Rising Stars of commercial real estate. And then Dallas Business Journal lists you as the heavy hitter back in 2011. So that was like shortly after getting started. I mean, you were already being classified as a heavy hitter as you were wearing out those heels going door to door, right? And so that was literally 2 years into your stint here. And in any event, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And again, I know you're being somewhat humble, but you've had a great success along the way. And so what I'd love to hear from you, Sarah, is you really found your footing with Transwestern. And did you stay with Transwestern up until the point that you went out on your own?
No. So I had been with Transwestern about 8 years, and then was approached by a local group that wanted to start their commercial division. And they had been approaching me for 2 years and wasn't necessarily, say not interested, but not interested in making a switch. But they approached me with the scenario of something I couldn't refuse. And we closed about 1.5 million square feet in 14 months and went over there. It was a great learning experience for me. We still have great relationship and working together. But after that time, after about a year, we decided it probably wasn't the best fit for either of us, and decided, I think the owner of the company, we're very similar in mindset and personality. And I knew that it was time for me to go out and start Landcart. And so it's been about 1 year since we started Landcart. Okay.
So you had two decisions there really at that point in time during that pivotal moment. And that was, you knew that you weren't going to stay with that current group. You could have obviously, went and stepped in to another brokerage house. However, you decided to go out on your own. Talk to me about that mental process. I mean, that truly is fear of the unknown. However, you started the commercial division for this other group. They were established. I'm not sure what that comp plan or what that attractive nature looked like of that deal, but it probably was a little bit more secure than you actually going out and doing your own thing. And so help me think through with you back in that time, or I guess, just a little over a year ago of truly transitioning to the founding of your own company. And what was that like emotionally for you?
I mean, all of it's been scary, but I've been 100% commissioned since the day I've started. And this was kind of the next step. And, you can go back. We have a ton of great brokerage houses in our market. But at the same point, I didn't want to go back to the same scenario I was in at Transwestern. Although a great group of people, to me, there's still a brokenness in our industry on the brokerage side of how you operate under a name, but everyone is still a very independent broker operating, under an umbrella. And I wanted to create an environment of which we were really talking about deals with everybody in the office, whether it's the industrial group or the office group or retail, and really collaborating and a mind share approach of we're all in it together. And so that's what really prompted me, instead of going back to another larger shop, to really start Landcart and really create an atmosphere that you want to come to the office versus working remotely all the time, and really collaborate on how we can all best help our clients and serve our market.
Theoretically, that sounds wonderful, but how did you effectively roll that out and integrate that into the fabric of your company?
Yeah, so we're meeting on a weekly basis to talk about how we best grow the company, and we're keeping track of all the deals in our market, everything we're working on, everything other brokers are working on, and we're meeting on a regular basis to talk about everything, and really setting up a structure of which incentivizes everybody to share and work together.
I'd love to get your feedback on, even back 10 years ago when you were just first getting your start. I think his name was Jerry, your mentor. He wasn't even really willing to give you a shot right from the get-go, and you kind of sound like you forced his hand a little bit, which is awesome. Commercial real estate, in my mind, maybe I'm wrong, I think it's slowly shifting, but it still is very much a male-dominated field. And I like to always joke around saying it's a male-dominated field of old grumpy men. And I know that's changing over time. You and I are both here, and I'm not an old man. I don't think I am. I guess my kids probably think I am. But in any event, I think there's a lot of new blood coming into the industry. But at the end of the day, it still very much is dominated by males. And so I'd love to get your perspective of kind of coming up in a male-dominated industry, and just, especially like in Texas. And when I think of Texas, I just think of, it's a man state. It's just I don't know. Maybe that's me. Maybe I got the wrong impression of Texas. Everything's bigger there, and it's just a burly state, And so, how does Sarah, how does she make her way? I mean, how do you make your way, and how do you push through all the noise, and really set yourself apart and put yourself up to where people can see you when you've got all these other grumpy men trying to filter you out?
Yeah, no, I mean, so I'm still the only female industrial broker in my market. There's
That's awesome. Good for you.
In Fort Worth. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, most of the time I tell people, in honesty, it played to my advantage. I mean, I was a different face coming into a warehouse when it's typically suits and, a male-driven industry, and you've got a woman walking into the warehouse. I think in some ways, I think in general it played to my benefit, but in other ways it didn't. I mean, I had to prove myself, I believe, more so than a man walking in, that I knew what I was talking about. Yeah. They were like, well, who are you? And what do you really know about industrial? And then the more you prove yourself, the more respect you gain and confidence from other people that you do know what you're doing. But I still think we still have a long way to go and getting other women into this business. And I would say sometimes, as females, we can be a little bit more emotional and take things, more personal. And this business is tough in the sense that there's a lot of rejection and you have to be able to take it. But the more and more you can push through it.
That's great. So I know that you spend most of your days on the transactional side in Landcart commercial. However, you made me aware that you also play in the investment side of the business as well with your own investments. And as I'd mentioned to you, a good portion of this show is where we interview successful commercial real estate investors. Those that are actually on the ownership side versus just the transactional side. And so I'd love to get from your perspective. I know that you're focusing on industrial, on the transactional side of your business. Is that also where you dabble on the investment side as well? Do you stay in the same niche?
For the most part, yes. I mean, we want to invest in what we know in and understand, and that's where we can bring the most value to the assets.
Where is the greatest opportunity in your eyes from an investment side? So you wear two different hats, right? Where is the biggest opportunity in the industrial sector in your market today from an investment perspective? I mean, I know this is just a personal opinion, and that's what I'm seeking.
Sure. So, we all know we're at the top of a market cycle, and the industrial asset class has been one of the top asset classes that everyone's seeking currently, or a lot of groups are. and prices are high, and you're seeing a lot of stuff that to me doesn't make a lot of sense. But there's still opportunities to be found. And I think, we're focused on kind of more that BC product type infill and finding, off-market opportunities that, your institutional groups are not chasing, but larger than your, mom and pop that are just buying smaller deals.
Mm-hmm. What is that typical market size? I mean, so like the middle market, give me like a general price range. And this is obviously specific to Dallas Fort Worth, but what does that range look like in industrial?
3 to 10 million.
Single tenant, multi-tenant, a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. Right now is definitely not a buyer's market in the Dallas Fort Worth, but I think there's growth. So Fort Worth is growing tremendously. And, we offer the same logistical infrastructure as Dallas. So 35, 30, 20. And we have, people moving into the Metroplex. I forget what the number is, per day, but it's significant. And so I see some of the outlying cities, that aren't in necessarily the core part of Fort Worth, those areas growing and there's going to be, where households are going in, there's going to be demand for industrial space in those areas. Yeah.
Now I know that this is a slight shift of gears. I know that, Texas as a whole was predominantly a conservative state. You've got pockets of blue here and there, but majority red. I know that Governor Abbott just recently signed, I think it was House Bill 3703, I believe, which allowed an expanded use of medicinal marijuana. I think there was something that just changed very recently in the last couple of days to where they've somewhat limited the number of applications because they were getting flooded with them. However, we know that in multiple other markets out there, you got medicinal and they got recreational. I'm not sure how far away. Yeah, Texas is probably still years away from it being recreational, as a lot of the conservative states are. However, we do know that in these states where both medicinal and recreational have been, allowed, industrial, especially like the C-class stuff, has seen a major boon in overall value and demand. What's your perspective of how the changes with marijuana and the acceptance of it might affect your local real estate market there?
So I don't think it's going to affect us as much as, obviously Colorado, because I think we're going to be one of the last states.
Yeah, I think so too.
But of course, as more demand comes into the market for that sort of product, it's obviously going to impact it on a positive side of, more demand. The problem, is we need more supply in our market, and you're seeing spec development still continue, and that will open up, more B and C product. If it were to happen today, we would have a real issue because we don't have enough supply, and as additional demand comes in, I think, it would drive up prices significantly. So depending on what side of the table you're on, is whether it's a positive or a negative.
Yeah, I guess so. What is the current vacancy in just industrial in general in Dallas Fort Worth?
Below 6%, current vacancy.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. All right. I'd love to shift gears if we could, Sarah, and I'd like to enter, what we call the lightning round. And this is where I'm going to ask you 6 very concise short questions, and we're seeking 6 very concise answers on the backside. And so a couple of these do get a little personal, which we like to always put that personal touch onto the show. The first question being, your biggest fear. What is your biggest fear?
I never want to lose anybody else's money.
Right.
So fear of failure. And I think that's what drives you. It's like what Warren Buffett said, never, ever lose money. And so, if I'm working with a client and they're investing in a property or we're investing in a property, being conservative, but also the ability to take risks, but I don't want to do it at the sake of other people,
Yeah. I love it. How about your one biggest regret?
Oh man, one biggest regret. Probably not investing more people in 2010 and 2009 in some property.
Hallelujah. I feel you. How about most influential business book?
So there's a book, I cannot remember the author off the top of my head, but it's The Art of Choice. And it's an interesting book that was written by a blind woman who basically had no, you would think of a person who has little choices to make in their life, of how impactful, being able to make a choice is, and how to make a choice effectively and quickly. Because, in today's world, there's so many options that are thrown at you, and learning how to make decisions quickly and effectively, how important that is.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. How about outside of the daily work grind, what do you do to decompress?
I enjoy running. So typically go for a run each evening, and then spending time with my husband at the ranch.
All righty. Good deal. How about the one thing that you can't live without?
Probably iced coffee.
Fair enough. Everyone's got a vice, right? Last question is, what would your plan ultimately be, if you decided that you didn't want to be in real estate any longer?
I love this business. But I would say I'm not any good at it and would be terrible at it, but architecture and design. I love that aspect of the business, but I'm not very good at it.
Plan B doesn't ever have to revolve around actually being successful or making money at something. It's always like what's the one thing that I feel is a hobby or of an interest that I probably haven't pursued because, it's just, I'm not passionate in that way that I want to make money at it, but I really enjoy doing it. Right. Or I think I would enjoy doing it. So like for me, I'm a huge you're a runner. I'm a big cyclist. I love cycling, and I love doing long distance, multiple day trips.
Yeah. It could be travel the world.
There you go. On a bike. There you go. Sarah, lots of great information shared today. Lots of golden nuggets along the way. And however, I'd like to ask if you just had one final golden nugget of advice or wisdom that you could leave with our listeners today that may inspire and motivate them as they progress in their real estate career. What would that one last golden nugget be?
I'd say just don't be afraid. Everyone's approachable, and just make the calls and don't be afraid.
What has your personal experience been with that? I mean, I feel like the ones, we typically build up these false expectations, especially when you're out there, you're calling on these property owners, some you start doing your research and seeing the data, and you got these very prominent real estate owners that own hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate. And you start discouraging yourself and setting these false expectations of how bad the call is going to go, or they're not going to want to talk to me. And have you found that it's typically the opposite? That the ones that end up being more approachable are the ones that are, I guess, deemed to be more successful based on their holdings versus those that might be smaller investors? I mean, have you found that to be the case?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Me too.
They want to hear from you. And even the companies too. I mean, at a young age, I was working on some really large tenant rep assignments that no one would think that I got the business on my own, but it was just because I wasn't afraid to pick up the phone and call and ask for it. And yes, you have to prove yourself and show your competency, but at the same point, if you never ask, you'll never know.
Yeah. I love it. Absolutely fantastic. Well, folks, if you have an interest in learning more about Sarah and her company, Landcart Commercial, you can visit her website. It's landcartcre.com, and that's Landcart, LANCARTE, and then CRE. So landcartcre.com. Sarah, that's all we have for today. Is there anything else that you feel we might have missed that's of relevance that you'd like to share with the listeners before we say goodbye?
I think we covered it.
All righty. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you, Sarah, for coming on the show. And thank you to each and every one of you that tuned into this week's podcast. And until we meet again next week, this is your host, Kevin Bupp, wishing you huge success.
Congratulations! Now you've got more of the best tricks of the trade in building massive amounts of passive income from real estate. For more amazing resources, visit realestateinvestingforcashflow.com. And we'll see you next Monday morning.